Anxiety is not a life sentence. It's a signal, a call to upgrade your thinking, your decisions, and your dominion. If you don't master your mind will master you, and anything that masters you owns your peace, your power, and your future. Your mind was never designed to lead you. It was built to serve you. But most people live their entire lives being dominated by the very thing they should be commanding. They wake up anxious because their mind is already running scenarios they never agreed to. They go to sleep restless because their mind is replaying regrets like a broken record. But here's the truth. If you don't train your mind, it will train you. And it will train you for mediocrity, fear, and confusion. That's what happens when the servant becomes the master. The mind is powerful, yes, but it was created to be a tool, not a tyrant. You're the architect, the authority, the decision maker. But somewhere along the way, you let your mind vote. And not only did it start voting, it started ruling. Your mind is great at calculating, remembering, strategizing, but it is terrible at leading your life. Why? Because it only knows what you feed it. It can't access faith. It doesn't understand vision. It has no revelation. It can't dream. It can only recall. The mind collects data and tries to keep you safe. But when your goal is to grow, safety becomes your enemy. Growth always feels unsafe to the mind. Because the mind likes patterns, predictability, and protection. It will tell you to stay in the job you hate because at least the paycheck is predictable. It will tell you to avoid love because rejection hurt once before. It will tell you to quit before you fail, not because it's evil, because it's untrained. Your job is not to destroy your mind, it's to discipline it. You don't silence it, you guide it. You don't reject it, you retrain it. Most people spend more time programming their phones than they do programming their minds. They wake up and immediately scroll. They let the world set their emotional thermostat. They don't choose their thoughts, they react to them. And they wonder why their peace is fragile, why their confidence fades, why their purpose feels so distant. It's because they've made the servant the ruler. But you're different. You're not here to be run by thoughts. You're here to run them. That means interrupting thoughts that don't align with your future. That means questioning the beliefs you never chose but inherited. That means replacing mental autopilot with intentional direction. When your mind says, you can't, your spirit says, watch me. When your mind says, what if it goes wrong? Your leadership says, what if it works? See, your spirit sees destiny. Your mind sees danger. Your spirit sees legacy. Your mind sees loss. And if you let your mind lead, you'll always talk yourself out of what God already gave you permission to build. You'll always hesitate at the door of opportunity because you're waiting for your brain to feel ready. But the mind doesn't do faith. Faith is built in your spirit, lived through your body, and only processed by the mind after you move. This is why you have to decide every single day to renew your mind, to take your thoughts captive, to teach your brain how to obey your purpose instead of sabotage your peace. That means you talk back. When your thoughts say you're not good enough, you reply with, I'm not built on feelings, I'm built on truth. When your thoughts say, this is too much, you declare, I was made for more than this. You don't argue with anxiety, you overrule it. Because here's the truth. Your mind has memory, but your spirit has vision. The mind remembers failure. It remembers pain. It remembers every mistake, but your vision isn't based on where you've been, it's based on where you're going. So stop asking your mind for permission to do something it has no authority over. Your mind doesn't get to vote on your calling. It doesn't get to edit your dream. It doesn't get to decide your worth. It's just a tool, a powerful one, yes, but only when placed in submission to your purpose. Train your mind to ask better questions. Train it to focus on solutions. Train it to expect progress. Stop letting it run loops of fear and start feeding it loops of faith. That's your power. You don't need a new brain. You need a new relationship with the one you already have. You need to treat it like a soldier under command, not a dictator giving orders. You were never meant to be ruled by fear, stress, or overthinking. That is the result of a servant trying to be king. Take your seat back. Reclaim the throne of your inner world. Command your thoughts. Program your peace. Declare your direction. And let your mind do what it was built to do, not lead you in circles, but serve you toward the vision you were born to fulfill. Anxiety doesn't appear out of nowhere. It doesn't just crash into your life randomly. It grows, slowly, steadily, in the invisible places where clarity is missing. It creeps into the cracks left by hesitation, indecision, and doubt. Anxiety thrives in the spaces you haven't claimed with conviction, and the more uncertain you are about who you are, what you want, and where you're going, the more room anxiety has to take root. Uncertainty is a breeding ground for fear. When your mind doesn't have a clear direction, it creates its own narrative, and usually that narrative leans negative. Why? Because the brain is designed to protect you, not empower you. It assumes the worst because it wants to keep you safe. It wants to prepare you for the pain it thinks is coming, but in doing so, it keeps you trapped in a cycle of what-ifs. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if I make the wrong move? And every one of those questions is a seed. Given enough time and attention, those seeds become anxiety. Uncertainty paralyzes progress. It makes you overanalyze everything. It keeps you stuck in the hallway between decision and action. It's not that you don't want to move forward. It's that you're afraid of what might happen if you do. So instead of building, you freeze. Instead of speaking, you overthink. Instead of walking through the door, you study the hinges, and while you're hesitating, anxiety is hard at work growing roots. It feeds off that limbo. It loves when you're undecided, because the longer you wait, the louder it gets. See, anxiety is loudest when your direction is weakest. That's why some of the most anxious people are also some of the most gifted. It's not that they're weak, it's that their vision hasn't been defined. And where there is no vision, there will always be fear. Not because you're broken, but because your energy is unclaimed. Your potential has no assignment. Your power has no plan, and when your power has no plan, it turns inward. It becomes self, doubt second, guessing and inner chaos. That's what anxiety really is, unfocused power with no outlet. But the moment you start getting clear, something changes. When you get clear about who you are, anxiety has less room to lie to you. When you get clear about what matters, distractions lose their grip. When you get clear about your next step, fear starts to shrink. Because clarity creates stability, and stability starves anxiety. Clarity doesn't mean you know every detail. It means you know your direction. It means you've made a decision, and now your energy has somewhere to go. People think confidence is the opposite of anxiety. It's not. Clarity is, because even confident people feel fear. But when you have clarity, fear doesn't get to run the show. When you have clarity, you move forward in spite of it. You don't need every answer. You just need to stop waiting for perfect certainty before you act. Action creates momentum, and momentum silences anxiety. The more you move, the less space fear has to sit in your mind. You can't afford to live your life in limbo. You can't afford to keep postponing your peace waiting on perfect timing. That's how anxiety wins. It convinces you to wait a little longer, think a little harder, play it a little safer, but life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards movement. You don't have to know everything to start. You just have to know enough to take one bold step. That's how you shrink uncertainty. One decision at a time, one commitment at a time, one risk at a time. The truth is, most people aren't anxious because they're weak. They're anxious because they're unsure, and instead of getting clear, they get comfortable in confusion. But confusion is not neutral. It's costly. It drains your energy. It steals your time. It distracts your spirit, and the longer you stay confused, the more control anxiety gains. But the moment you decide, even if it's not perfect, you take your power back. Because power doesn't live in perfection. It lives in movement. It lives in courage. It lives in clarity. So if you want to eliminate anxiety, don't just fight the feeling, remove the fuel. And the fuel is uncertainty. Decide what you want. Decide who you are. Decide what matters, and then build your life around that decision. Not someday, not when it's safe, not when it's easy, right now. Because every moment you delay, anxiety digs deeper. But every move you make toward clarity, you dig up its roots. Anxiety grows where there's no ownership. It grows in the gaps between your potential and your choices. The only way to stop it from growing is to fill those gaps with direction, identity, and boldness. Don't wait for peace to come to you. Claim it. By getting crystal clear about where you're headed and who you refuse to be anymore. Vision is the antidote to anxiety because it gives your mind a direction and your soul a reason. When you have a clear and compelling vision for your life, you stop obsessing over temporary problems. Anxiety grows when your mind has no focus, no future picture to chase, and no clarity of purpose. But the moment vision enters the room, fear starts to back down. You can't be dominated by what's behind you when you're locked in on what's ahead of you. Anxiety loves attention. It thrives on your focus. It gains momentum when you stare at the same problem over and over again, hoping it will change. But vision shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's possible. It interrupts the cycle of overthinking and redirects your energy toward progress. You're not meant to sit in a cycle of fear. You're meant to move in the direction of your destiny. And movement only comes when vision becomes louder than your fear. Most people are overwhelmed not because their lives are too full, but because their vision is too small. Without vision, every little issue feels like a crisis. Every delay feels like a denial. Every inconvenience feels personal. But when you have vision, you can filter your feelings. You start to see problems as temporary, setbacks as lessons, and resistance as part of the process. Vision gives you a lens through which fear can't dominate. It reminds you that where you are is not where you'll stay. Anxiety feeds on ambiguity. When you're not sure why you're here, what you're doing, or where you're going, your mind fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. But vision brings certainty, not certainty about every detail, but certainty about direction. When you're clear about the outcome you're building, you stop wasting energy on things that don't move you closer. You stop entertaining people who distract you, and you stop giving emotional real estate to voices that weren't assigned to your future. When you lack vision, you become reactive. You respond to everything emotionally. But vision makes you proactive. You start choosing your battles. You stop explaining your boundaries. You wake up with intention instead of dread. That's what vision does. It gives your day meaning, your decisions weight, and your emotions balance. You don't need less pressure. You need more perspective, and perspective comes from vision. Anxiety often shows up when you're busy but not building. You're moving but not advancing. You're grinding but not growing. That's because busyness is not the same as alignment. When you're not building what you were born to build, your spirit gets restless. That restlessness becomes anxiety, but the moment you align with vision, that same energy becomes fuel. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters. Vision helps you separate the urgent from the important. A person with vision doesn't panic, they plan, they adjust, they evaluate, but they don't spiral. Because their peace isn't tied to how things look right now. It's tied to where they know they're headed. Vision keeps you grounded. It reminds you that storms are part of the process, not the end of the story. Without vision, a hard day feels like a permanent sentence. But with vision, a hard day is just a workout for your character. You don't eliminate anxiety by sitting in silence, hoping for peace. You eliminate it by standing up and deciding what you're here to do. Because once you have a reason, your resistance has context. You're not just surviving anymore. You're building. You're not just reacting. You're creating. Vision turns survival mode into mission mode. And people on a mission don't have time to entertain every anxious thought. They've got too much work to do. There's a reason high performers seem calm under pressure. It's not because they don't feel anxious. It's because their vision is stronger than their emotions. They've made a decision about who they are, what they're building, and why it matters. So even when fear shows up, it doesn't stick around, it can't. Because when vision leads, emotions follow. But when emotions lead, vision dies. You don't rise into peace by accident. You rise into it by clarity. Clarity about your values. Clarity about your assignment. Clarity about what deserves your attention. Vision gives you permission to stop explaining yourself and start executing. It shrinks anxiety by making your future feel more real than your fears. Because when your vision is vivid, your distractions lose their power. Your doubts lose their volume, and your peace stops being conditional. You were never meant to be ruled by what you feel. You were meant to be ruled by what you see with faith. The clearer your vision, the quieter your anxiety. Because vision gives every storm a purpose and every battle a reason. When you wake up driven by vision, you don't beg for peace, you become it. Peace is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or something that magically appears when life gets easier. Peace is trained. It's wired into your nervous system through repetition, discipline, and intentional choices. If your body is used to chaos, it will keep seeking chaos. If your nervous system is used to stress, it will interpret calm as a threat. That's why some people feel uncomfortable in silence, bored in stillness, and restless in ease. It's not because peace isn't available. It's because peace isn't familiar. Your body holds memory, not just mental memory, but emotional and physiological memory. If your default state has been survival, anxiety, or emotional vigilance, then peace feels like letting your guard down, and letting your guard down feels dangerous. That's why even when circumstances change, some people still feel trapped in fear. Because their nervous system hasn't caught up to their new reality. You can change your environment and still carry the storm inside. Until you train your body to feel safe and calm, you will keep unconsciously chasing stress. Most people think anxiety is just a mental issue, but anxiety is often deeply physical. Your breath gets shallow, your chest tightens, your muscles stay tense. That's your body in flight mode, bracing for an attack that never comes. And if you don't interrupt that pattern, it becomes normal. Your nervous system starts to believe that safety is an illusion and threat is a constant. You're not imagining it. You're reliving it over and over again until you decide to train for something different. Training your nervous system for peace means learning to sit in stillness without panicking. It means breathing deeply when your first instinct is to shut down or lash out. It means creating new emotional habits, not just mental affirmations. You can't think your way into peace if your body is screaming chaos. You have to teach your body what safety feels like, and that takes time. That takes consistency, that takes practice, but it's possible. Peace becomes a pattern when you choose it daily. It's in the moments you pause before reacting. It's in the deep breaths you take when tension rises. It's in how you talk to yourself after a setback. It's in the way you walk into a room with presence instead of panic. You're not just managing stress. You're rewiring how your body responds to life. You're telling your nervous system, we don't live in danger anymore. We live in discipline. We live in vision. We live in calm. Every time you choose peace over panic, you're carving a new path in your nervous system. You're showing your body that you're not at war anymore. You're safe to relax. You're safe to slow down. You're safe to feel joy without waiting for something to go wrong. Because that's another lie anxiety tells, that peace is temporary, that good things can't last, that stillness is a setup for disappointment. But peace is not a setup, it's a strategy, and you get better at it the more you practice it. When you train your nervous system for peace, you start recognizing what doesn't belong in your life anymore. You stop tolerating environments that keep you on edge. You start leaving conversations that spike your adrenaline. You don't chase chaos just because it's familiar. You make peace your new standard, not your reward. It's not something you earn after burnout. It's something you establish as the foundation of how you move, decide, and show up. It's not weakness to rest. It's wisdom. It's not laziness to pause. It's leadership, because a regulated person can think clearly. A regulated person makes powerful decisions. A regulated person leads with presence, not panic. And the most dangerous thing about a calm person is that they can't be manipulated by urgency, fear, or emotional chaos. They're grounded. They're focused. They know how to access peace without needing the world to cooperate first. You don't wait for peace to find you. You build it, one breath at a time, one boundary at a time, one calm response at a time, and it's not always glamorous. Sometimes peace is choosing silence instead of defending yourself. Sometimes peace is logging off instead of engaging. Sometimes peace is walking away with dignity instead of proving a point. But every time you choose it, you teach your body something new. We don't respond to everything. We don't react to every storm. We don't live in fight mode anymore. Peace is not passive. It's powerful. It's the product of internal authority. And once you've trained for it, it becomes who you are, not just what you feel. Your nervous system learns to stay steady even when life shakes. That's the goal. Not a life without problems, but a life where problems don't own your body, your emotions, or your decisions. Because peace, when trained and rooted, is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of control. Anxiety doesn't scream, it whispers. It slips into your thoughts, wearing your tone, using your memories, imitating your logic. That's what makes it so deceptive. It doesn't feel foreign. It feels familiar. It doesn't sound like an enemy. It sounds like you. That's how it convinces you to shrink, to question, to quit. It doesn't show up shouting, "You'll fail." It says, "What if you're not ready?" It doesn't insult you directly. It makes you second. Guess your readiness, your worth, your belonging. And because it uses your voice, you believe it. That's the trap. You start calling anxiety intuition. You think it's wisdom when really it's worry. You think you're being cautious, but you're actually being controlled. You think you're being smart, but fear is behind the wheel. The longer you let that voice go unchecked, the more authority it gains. It doesn't need evidence. It just needs repetition. If it repeats itself long enough, it feels like truth. And when a lie feels like truth, It becomes your reality. You don't notice it at first. It might start with hesitation. Then it becomes avoidance. Then it becomes procrastination masked as preparation. You say things like, "I'm waiting for the right time," or "I just need to get everything in order first." But what's really happening is anxiety has hijacked your momentum. And every time you agree with it, you give it more control. Anxiety isn't just a feeling. It's a manipulator. It studies your patterns. It knows where your insecurities live. It knows what words stop you. It doesn't attack your strength. It feeds on your uncertainty, and it rarely shows up full force. It's subtle. It slides into your mind through doubt. It makes you play small in the name of being realistic. But it's not realism. It's fear disguised as logic, and if you don't challenge it, it starts writing your script. The most dangerous thing about anxiety is that it doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like protection. It tells you not to try because you might fail. It tells you not to love because you might get hurt. It tells you not to speak because someone might judge you. But what it doesn't tell you is that in protecting you from pain, it's also stealing your power. It's keeping you safe in the worst way possible, by locking you out of every opportunity that requires courage. And the truth is, you can't fight anxiety by just trying to feel better. You have to confront the voice. You have to expose it. You have to ask, who told me this? Is this fear or is this fact? Is this my identity or is this just my history talking? You have to stop letting every thought pass through your mind without question. Just because it sounds like your voice doesn't mean it belongs to your truth. Anxiety will borrow your language, but it can't access your calling. It doesn't know your potential. It only knows your past. It only knows what didn't work. It only knows what hurt you. So it recycles old evidence and pretends it's prophecy. It replays old wounds and calls them wisdom. But that's not who you are now. You're not living in that moment anymore. And you don't have to keep reliving it just because anxiety wants to drag you back. This is why identity is everything. When you know who you are, you stop letting every voice in your head make decisions for you. You stop treating every anxious thought as a command. You stop asking fear for advice. You stop negotiating with panic because you understand not every voice is valid, not every thought is truth, not every inner feeling deserves a vote. You have to take your authority back. You have to remind your nervous system who's in charge. You have to tell anxiety, you don't speak for me. You have to build a new default, a voice in your head that sounds like confidence, that sounds like wisdom rooted in faith, that sounds like discipline, not dread. You build it one thought at a time, one decision at a time, one brave move at a time. Every time you challenge that anxious voice, it weakens. Every time you speak back to it, you reclaim territory. Every time you move forward anyway, you retrain your mind. That's how you unlearn fear. That's how you unhook your identity from a lie. That's how you build a mind that works for you, not against you. The voice of anxiety may sound like you, but it's not you. You are not fear. You are not confusion. You are not chaos. You are the one who chooses what voice gets the final word. And when you start speaking truth louder than fear speaks lies, everything changes. The volume of anxiety doesn't matter when you've made a decision about who's in charge. Fear thrives in the absence of faith. It multiplies when there's nothing to anchor your belief, nothing to hold you steady when life shakes. Fear whispers that you're not enough, that you're too late, that you'll fail again. And without faith, you'll believe it, because fear doesn't need truth to control you. It only needs agreement. It shows you worst case scenarios and calls them wisdom. It convinces you that safety is found in shrinking. But faith, real faith, is the weapon that stops fear in its tracks. It interrupts the lies, it silences the noise, and it restores your authority. Faith is not a passive feeling. It's not blind optimism or hope with no backbone. It's a decision. It's choosing to believe in what hasn't happened yet because of who you know you are. It's choosing vision over visible. It's choosing promise over panic. It's not denying reality. It's refusing to be ruled by it. Where fear says, look at what's going wrong, faith says, look at what's still possible. Where fear screams, it's over, faith calmly declares, it's not finished. Fear shows up every time you approach a new level. It stands guard at the door of growth, but that fear isn't there to destroy you. It's there to be defeated by the faith inside of you. Faith doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you don't obey it. It means you recognize it for what it is, a test, not a truth, a shadow, not substance, and once you see it clearly, you can walk past it instead of bowing to it. People don't stay stuck because of failure. They stay stuck because of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of loss, fear of disappointment, fear of being seen and still not being chosen. But fear only wins when faith goes silent, and too often, we let faith be the last voice instead of the first. We treat faith like a rescue rope when it should be the foundation. You don't pull on it only when things collapse. You build on it so things don't collapse. Every breakthrough begins with a moment where faith overrules fear. It's never a perfect moment. You're still nervous. You're still uncertain. But something inside of you speaks louder than the fear. That something is faith. It's the unshakable part of you that remembers who you are when everything else forgets. It's the part of you that refuses to shrink even when it hurts. It's the part of you that knows if you don't believe, you won't build. Faith gives you clarity. Fear clouds your judgment, makes you overthink, delays your action. But faith simplifies things. It makes decisions clearer. It aligns your actions with your assignment. It reminds you that your purpose didn't change just because your circumstances did. Faith tells you we're still going, we're still becoming, we're still showing up. And that voice is crucial, because without it, you'll only move when it's easy, and nothing worth building is ever easy. The most dangerous thing about fear is how reasonable it sounds. It won't tell you to give up. It will tell you to wait. It won't say you can't do it. It will say you're not quite ready yet. That's how fear disguises itself as logic. But faith doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It creates movement even when nothing makes sense. Faith walks when the map is blurry. It acts when the outcome is unknown. It builds while everyone else is still asking questions. Faith isn't loud, but it is powerful. It doesn't need to shout to be effective. Sometimes it shows up as quiet confidence, as inner stillness, as the refusal to panic. Sometimes faith is a whisper that says, try again. Sometimes it's a stubbornness that won't quit. And sometimes it's a bold declaration that says, this fear will not lead me today. However it shows up, faith always stands in direct opposition to fear. You can't be full of faith and full of fear at the same time. One has to bow. Your next level won't come through more strategies, more information, or more credentials. It will come through more faith, more trust in what's inside you, more confidence in your identity, more willingness to step before you're sure. You don't need the whole plan. You just need enough faith to take the next step. Faith doesn't eliminate fear in one swing. It defeats it day by day, decision by decision, and that's the secret. Faith isn't about being fearless. It's about being faithful, faithful to the calling, faithful to the vision, faithful to the process, faithful to yourself. When you live like that, fear loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because you're no longer listening. You've chosen a different voice, one that leads you forward, one that calls you higher, one that reminds you, this fear cannot stop what faith has already started. Anxiety is not your identity, it's your invitation, an invitation to level up your thoughts, your routines, your identity, and your focus. You don't eliminate anxiety by running from it. You eliminate it by replacing it with vision, with truth, with discipline, and with faith.